Call to order the regular meeting of the Town of Florence Planning and Zoning Commission. Today is February 16th, 2017, and the time is 6 p.m. Mr. Randolph, will you take the roll call?
Yes. Good evening, Commissioners. Chairman Pronto.
Present.
Vice Chairman Patrick.
Present.
Commissioner Bell. Can you speak in the mic? Is it on?
Present.
Commissioner Smith.
Present.
And Commissioner Frost. Commissioner Frost not present. Proceed.
We have a quorum.
Yes, and we do have a quorum. My apologies.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next item. Discussion, approval, disapproval of the minutes of the regular meeting conducted on December 15, 2016. Do we have any discussion?
I make a motion we approve the minutes as submitted.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Patrick, second by Commissioner Bell. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Okay, new business. Windmill Winery Expansion Phase 1, PZ 1671. This is the design review application for the Windmill Winery, which is located on the southeast corner of Butte Avenue and Plant Road. Mr. Randolph, do we have a presentation?
Chair, members of the commission, we actually do have a presentation, and we're going to turn it over to the applicant in a second, but I want to just introduce the project briefly. We are doing a design review request on the expansion of the windmill project. It is on the 40 acres immediately south of the existing windmill facility. Actually, in this first phase, we're looking at about 10 acres, so we still have planning to do for the other 30 or so acres. But this will be a wonderful addition, and most of you have gotten to get a glimpse of this project already through previous steps that we've taken with the zoning on this project and the neighborhood meeting that we had and so forth. And some of you are just familiar with it because of your how you're acquainted with the windmill project as a whole. This really is a nice addition to that project. They are kind of working symbiotically, and there's an event center, an inn, and a bridal college, along with a lot of other site improvements that are proposed in this phase. Concurrently, we're also working on a development agreement with the applicant. One of the owners of Artisan Acres is Harold Christ, is present here tonight. He's here to address any questions you may have. We're also working with the owners on the development agreement, as I said. And we also expect to be getting deep into construction plans here pretty shortly. So this is a really significant project for the town, something we're very excited to get started on. Instead of running through the staff report in detail tonight, what we decided is that since Mr. Denzak is present here with Swaback Partners, we'd allow him the opportunity to run through a presentation. And then if there's anything that we can add to it, or Mr. Chris can add to it, we'd be more than willing to contribute to that. I will note that there's one clarification. There was a misprint, I believe, in the report that talked about the event center as being two-story. It looks like it's a two-story building or even taller, but it is actually it only has one level in there. So just for clarification, the inn is a true two-story. And then the cottage is a single-story small building. And with that, if you don't mind, Chair, members of the commission.
Without further ado,
I will turn it over. Thank you so much.
please state your name and address for the record.
Mr. Commissioners, good evening. Jeff Denzak from Swaback Partners, 7550 East McDonald Drive, Scottsdale, Arizona. Good evening. Good to see everyone again. We'll Great. Thank you again for being here. As Mark said, I know that some of the commission members have seen some of the previous imagery, character, and design direction during the rezoning phase, and we wanted to share that as well as some additional imagery. As you know, Harold and his ownership group have been working with us for the last several months on the expansion of the property, and as I think I may have said to this group before, our firm is privileged to work on projects all over the country and internationally, and Vern Swabak still has a fond place in his heart for Florence, and when Harold asked us to work with his team on the design, we were more than happy to, and as Mark said, we think it's going to be a fantastic asset to the community. Just a quick couple comments about the image that we have up on the screen now. One of the very important things about the project is to really blend with the character of Harold's existing projects and property. So we've gone to great efforts to make sure that the new development stays within the kind of visual character and quality, so it really complements the existing property. So visually, we want it to all blend together. And of course, as you know, during the whole zoning process, that goes along with the zoning for Territory Square. Here's just a little image of the plan, and here I'm just kind of highlighting the Cotton Gin Event Center that Mark mentioned is really a one-story big volume. Just like the barn across the street is one big volume, this is as well. I think we have mentioned to you before, one of the things that we're excited about is the idea of the cotton gin and its historic place within Arizona and within this area. And we're excited to bring the kind of character and quality of that back. And while we're literally not copying a historic cotton gin, we've spent a lot of time with Harold and his group studying cotton gins and the construction and the technical aspects and the visual quality. And in terms of the current design, we're really excited about it, and we think it's going to be a great addition to the project. And if Harold has not told you, one of the things that we're planning on doing is hanging a crop duster inside that building as one of the cool features for the design. So we're pretty excited. On this side that I'm highlighting now is what we're referring to as the Winery Inn, and that's a 25-room inn, very much in line with kind of a boutique character of some of the inns that we're all familiar with throughout Arizona. In addition, this illustration, while still conceptual, shows potentially some of the expansion. We might expand the inn over here, and then as you know and we've discussed, there might be a little retail component here of artisan shops in the future, and you can see the connectivity to the adjacent property. Again, some of the character images. Here's an example that we've shown you before of an old cotton gin that we just fell in love with. And again, while we're not copying it, we've studied a lot of the components and the function and the dimensions and character, and we want to bring a lot of that value back. We had a design meeting earlier today in our office with Harold and the ownership group, and one of the things we talked about were the 5 C's of Arizona, and that's going to be something that we kind of celebrate throughout the property and the project to highlight in a lot of different subtle ways, just to kind of reinforce the history of our great state. Again, not only thinking about the buildings, but the character of the site. Down here in this corner, in fact, is a project that one of my colleagues worked on in Colorado, where they had these cool silhouettes of buffalo, and they had them in tall grasses, and it's just a simple steel plate. And in fact, I was saying today that, Harold, we should even study looking at a little steel plate silhouette of a cow as part of our overall design. So again, just some of the character of what we want to create on the site, and not to copy what's across the street, but to complement it with the new features and details and elements of the site. Again, as you know, we've followed the zoning for Territory Square with all its components in terms of uses, in terms of site characteristics, in terms of critical controls of building height and coverage and so forth. Here is the overall site plan for Phase 1. Again, the Cotton Gin Event Center, 1-story, the Winery Inn, 2-story, and then here is the what we refer to as the bridal cottage. This is where the location where the bride gets ready. We have our ceremony lawn right in here. We've got this elegant drop-off area, as you probably know if you've visited any weddings over at the Windmill Winery. Oftentimes the bride is dropped off in a horse and carriage. In this case, the horse and carriage would drop off right here. The bride would come through a series of beautiful arches, and then to the ceremony lawn and down to the ceremony area, and that's framed by some trellis structures. In terms of the Cotton Gin, we've got a little event lawn on the west side here for multi-use and so forth, parking along the perimeter, and then access along the back side. And this illustration also points out some of the strategy and components of the overall drainage and grading. Initially, based on Phase 1, even though we've got a 40-acre project, the extent of this area is between 8 and 10 acres, and we're going to do some berming along this edge just to help with landscape and treatment in early phases to visually provide a project that looks totally finished. One of the things, as you know, part of the requirements of the design review submittal is a pedestrian circulation plan, so we've coordinated closely with Will and Mark on those components, including ADA routes and accessibility. And then in your packet, as you've reviewed, these were some of the early studies for the Winery Inn. And as Mark has alluded to, we have advanced the design considerably, and I can tell you each week it gets better and better and more beautiful. And I think we had a great meeting again today with Harold and his team on the design, so we're very excited about it. And the Cotton Gin building, and again, while it's not a copy, a replica of a Cotton Gin, we've carefully orchestrated it to include all the elements and literally the salvage components that Harold has from the Cotton Gin and Coolidge. Will be utilizing that throughout the building. There's a close-up of that Cotton Gin. And then the bridal cottage. And then just some of the conceptual materials that we're looking at and coordinating with Harold on the options for color, for material, for roof, for siding, and so forth. And that's where we're at. We're happy to answer questions, and I'm sure Harold can join in on that. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Denzak?
When you're talking about the winery, the Cotton Gin, and the bridal college all at one place, and will 104 parking spaces be enough for all three facilities?
So what we've done is, as part of the design review submittal, we did an analysis of square footage based on the requirements for parking back to the zoning for
Right.
Territory Square.
I saw that.
And we calculated what was required based on our discussions with Harold and looking at the different events that would occur. We think that meets the minimum standards and also meets what Harold would need for his parking.
I don't know, maybe it's just me. 104 for a big wedding doesn't seem like enough. I don't know, that's just my opinion.
Chair, members of the commission, specific to that point, there's a great opportunity here with this project because they're just starting off on the first 10 acres of 30 acres. So they'll actually be able to evaluate if there is a necessity for additional parking, overflow parking areas, and we would easily be able to accommodate an interim overflow parking area if necessary, and then incorporate additional permanent parking spaces in the in the subsequent phases of the plan. So the great thing is here that we still have land to work with if it's deemed that they need to far exceed our code requirements for parking and provide some additional parking. So, but at this time, they are actually exceeding the code requirements for these
Yes,
uses.
I read that where they're exceeding it by 20 spaces or whatever, but I've been to some weddings where there's 300 or 400 cars out there, and if it gets as popular as I expect it to be, 104 wouldn't cut it. There'll be park all over the street and everywhere else.
Can I ask what the occupancy for the gin would be?
I don't know that the building official has calculated the ultimate occupancies, but do you have an expectation or an approximation?
Yeah, I don't have a number at hand. Again, in terms of the parking, we went through both the requirements and what Harold thought would be needed for that component. But literally, we don't have a count based on how an event would be set up at this point.
I assume, Harold, that you're basing this parking on your past experience. You had 2015, you had 300 events. How many events did you have in 2016?
Mr. Chris, please state your name and address, please.
Harold Christ, 1140 West Butte, Florence, Arizona. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, yes, we based it upon what we're doing across the street. One of the things that we found that is about half of the weddings that we do, most of the people will arrive by bus or some type of multiple type of transportation. We partner with the Green Tree Inn. They shuttle people back and forth. So the parking that we have at the windmill itself as it exists today, we've never really exceeded the capacity, and it's pretty interesting how that happens. But I think to Mark's point, we've got the space to expand if we need it. Really, we're just kind of putting our toe in the water to see what we'll be able to do with this particular project. Sure, sure. So that's really how we plan on handling, the parking situation. Okay. Well, my point was that you based this on experience. So
Yes.
Wasn't
Yes.
a swag.
That's correct.
Any more? Okay. In the conditions, the final plans for the ADA walkway is up to the approval of the Community Development Department. And I don't have any problem with that. That's ADOT stuff. But when I went through the layout, I noticed that you have a separate walkway for pedestrians that is to the north side of the main drive. And it leads to the north gate entrance, which is mainly the parking lot. My own experience, if I want to get to the other side of the road, I'll walk down your driveway and end up going into the west gate rather than the east gate. You follow me?
Yeah, so, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I've just put back up on the slide
There it is, yeah.
that shows both properties. So in earlier versions, we did show the walkway crossing right in the middle. In further discussions with both staff and also Harold and his staff who manage the different events, it was decided that the crossing at this location on the east would be a more appropriate location for that crossing. And that location right there allows for circulation that goes along this spine that I'm highlighting right there.
All right.
And that spine continues north into the property. So we thought, based on circulation and access, that would actually be the most appropriate site for a crossing based on function and safety.
All right, well, as long as you use the signage, but I'm just going by my own experience with Marriott's or every other place I've ever been. The way out is down the driveway. So just something to think about. Like I said, it's up to director and his group to finally be satisfied with it. Do we have any more questions? May I have a motion, please? All right, I'll move that we approve Windmill Winery Expansion Phase 1 PZ 1671. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Chairman Pranzo, seconded by, was it you?
Yes.
Chairman Petrick. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay. Planning and Zoning Commissioner duties and responsibilities. This is a discussion and a presentation of the existing Planning and Zoning Commission duties and responsibilities as stated in the town code. I didn't know that it was even stated in the town code. How do you want to handle this, Mr. Randolph?
Good evening. Once again, Will Randolph, Town Planner, Community Development. This is on the agenda as a presentation discussion. In your packets, there should have been a memo discussing some of the background. I hope you've had an opportunity to read the paragraph that is on the page. Last year, on May 5th of 2016, we had a work session discussing what's currently in the town code, which was also in your packet with the highlighted yellow on the sheet. The top portion of it, what is called 32.106 roles and responsibilities, duties, and powers of planning and zoning commissioners. And then we currently added some suggestions by looking at other town codes and what was discussed at the work session. And then staff thought it was an ample time with the addition of new commissioners to bring this subject back to fruition in front of all of you at a meeting to bring back and discuss and have any questions you may have towards staff and how we would like to want to proceed. So ultimately, on the sheet that was provided in your packet with the yellow highlights, those were suggestions that we, staff, gave to you from the last work session. I know it was quite a while ago. And then from that work session, we did implement your suggestions, and then we added or crossed out, which is shown on this worksheet, what you would like staff to do based off the work session. So we tried to implement your suggestions as much as we could, and from this point on, it would just be discussing how we want to proceed further. Mr. Mark Eckhoff, I don't know if you have anything to add to what I just said.
Chair, members of the commission, we know this has just been something that, Chair, you mentioned to us when you got back on the commission, you'd like to kind of fine-tune this, and we started working on it, and then we lost members, and we've been I had a skeleton crew, and we thought, wow, what an exciting opportunity. We're back up to 5 members, although Mr. Frost couldn't make it here tonight, but we're back up to 5 members, and this is the time to get this back on track, too. So to make a long story short, in your package, you got some examples of what some other cities do, and then you've got the document with all the highlighting of kind of our first stab on this, and I think it's pretty close. We just wanted to, this is not an action item per se, it's just something we wanted to let you know that we are going to refine this. If you have any ideas you want to throw at us at this time, if you say we're headed in the right direction, great, and we'll come back and adopt something formally. So formally, we have to do all the notifications for a text amendment in the paper and on the website and post it around town and so forth. So it is kind of a longer, more formal process to get this done, and then you would make a recommendation on the text, and then the text amendment then would go to the council. So that part is a bigger deal. Tonight, it's just a matter of, does it look like we're going in the right direction? Is there anything in particular that you like or dislike? And we'll take those suggestions and go forth and come back either next meeting or maybe the one after that, and proceed with this, get it done.
Good, thank you. I'm going to jump right in. And Mr. Randolph, I will share my notes with you, so you don't have to write anything down. I'm one of the people that provoked this, so I guess I need to take some ownership. Never learned to keep my mouth shut. I'm going to go through it, but like I said, I'm going to give you my notes, okay? One of the things that struck me right away is that this Planning and Zoning Commission really doesn't have a defined scope of what they are responsible for. So I went through what you gave me in the packet, and the packet does mention preliminary plats, final plat, general plan amendment, zoning change, things of that nature, but it doesn't mention design review, planned unit development, infill incentive, things of that nature. So what I did is I broke it down to what we approve or disapprove versus what we send to the council as a favorable and unfavorable recommendation. So that's broken down into my notes. I also include as a part of the scope that the Planning and Zoning Commission may apply conditions of approval as deemed necessary. In other words, the same as what we just went through tonight. My notes on the handout, lines A and B belong at the bottom. They're almost common sense. If you don't know to do that, you really shouldn't be here, okay? The opening statement, I don't know how much you know about agency law, but where is it? What's referenced in the opening statement, where is it here? 9-461.01 is agency law. And there's only one agent, and that's the director. The commission is not under agency law. In other words, the director has a fiduciary responsibility to the town, but the commission does not, okay? So that needs to go out. And what I suggested was either 38-431.01 through 09, which is open meeting law, or when this thing finally gets adopted, reference whatever it was that the council did to create a Planning and Zoning Commission. But get that agency stuff out of there. On E, that needs to be redesignated as A. And what I'm saying here is that a commissioner shall review the open meeting law materials at least one day before the day that commissioner takes office. And that's mandated by the Arizona Revised Statutes, and I referenced the statute here in my notes for you. F, I wrote down in my notes, whatever. Same for G. H is redundant to the list I gave you above. I is redundant. J, used in place of line D. K, I don't know what the hell that means. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. And I remember from a year ago we talked about it, and somebody made sense of it, but I still can't remember what it was. So I just kind of wrote delete it, because it's nothing but confusing. L is redundant. M has no application. N is redundant. O is redundant. Q is redundant. And finally, the chairperson's responsibilities, and this is something I feel strong about. The chairperson or his designee, there should be a letter I, and it should say the chairperson or his designee shall interview potential commissioners and make recommendations to the director and or the council. And the reason I say that is you guys are professional planners. You know too much. As a commissioner, you're sitting here and you're trying to keep up with you guys on the codes, on ordinances, what's a PUD, what's a CUP, and it really takes somebody to sit down and take a half an hour, 45 minutes with a new commissioner and go through this stuff. The booklet, Arizona Open Meeting Law. In here, by law, the commissioner has to read Chapter 7 in its entirety before he's even allowed to sit on the bench. So it's all these little things that it should be an experienced commissioner that sits down and lets the new person know what he's really getting into. Because he might have a different idea in his head of what he's getting into, and he might want to back out by the time he hears what we got to say. So anyway, that's why I put it in there. That's my notes, and hopefully I've done some good.
Chairman Pronzo, I really appreciate that. Actually, it's been a while since our former senior planner, I think, kind of drafted this and discussed it with you, and you made some good suggestions, and I'm sitting here having a lot of ideas too, and also I think what you mentioned along with changing this is to look for an opportunity to kind of enhance the process. So when our new commissioners come on,
Yes.
how we can educate them a little bit more and prepare them a little bit more, because we all do, especially in the more technical aspects, we take a lot of the acronyms and a lot of the language for granted. So I see, yeah, that's a good discussion as well to have. So maybe when we come back with this, maybe we'll have some additional information in this other area as well.
Right. And I'd like to caution, don't overwrite it. It's not that complicated.
It's not that complicated. I think certainly we were selling ourselves short to have three sentences before, and I think that was it was underestimating the role of the commission. So I think we can definitely.
Yeah, and it was you that belongs to, not us.
We can definitely expand it and make it better. And I, looking at these other cities too, there's some good examples, and that's just a few of them. I think we can address your concerns and come back with something much better than what we have.
Great. Anyone else?
And also, I think, Jeffrey and I were doing the interviewing prior to sending people up to the council, and I think in our role as advisors, I like that idea. If we have lots of applicants, it'd be a good idea for us to be reviewing those people before we send applicants up. And I know we're shorthanded, but we were shorthanded for a long time. But I think it's a good idea for us to do that, whoever chairman and vice chairman are, to do that as a matter of routine, so that it gives us an oversight on the people coming on, and we can also make recommendations or not to council.
And Vice Chair Patrick, I appreciate that. And for clarity on that item, when we have more applicants than we have positions, we generally do have a policy today for all the commissions that then an interview panel will be established, and it typically is the director of the department, the chair of that commission, and possibly another person, and they do interviews and they provide a recommendation to the council. When we don't have more applicants than positions, the policy has been to bring those applications to council, and they decide whether to make a recommendation on that or not. And so the interview phase is passed at that point. I think in part because the highest priority, particularly as we've seen with this commission, is ensuring that we have a quorum, which has been particularly challenging with a commission of three members. So, but yes, I wholeheartedly agree on that process as well.
Okay. Yeah, my only reservation is that I don't want somebody to come into this with a preconceived notion of what it is and find out it isn't. It's really a lot of work trying to keep up with you guys. Oh.
And I will note, I don't want to put our new commissioner on the spot, but looking at his experience and qualifications, and then also Mr. Frost, who's not here tonight, both seem like they have ample experience and interest in serving on the commission, and I really excited. I think they're going to be great additions to the.
Has nothing to do with Mr. Schmidt. It's just moving forward,
Absolutely.
trying to keep from making mistakes.
Absolutely.
Do we have anything else?
I'm good.
Mr. Randolph, are you done?
Yes, that concludes our discussion, and thank you for the suggestions, and I'll be getting the notes from you after.
Okay, then I will close Planning and Zoning Commissioner duties and responsibilities, and we'll move on to call to the public with Commission response. Call to the public for public comment on issues within the jurisdiction of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Individual commission members may respond to criticism made, may ask staff to review a matter raised, or may ask that the matter be put on a future agenda. However, members of the commission shall not discuss or take action on any matter during an open call to the public unless the matters are properly noticed for discussion and legal action. Do we have any call to the public? Without call to the public, I will close. Call to the commission. Current events only. The only current event I can think of is I'd like to welcome Commissioner Schmidt.
Thank you.
To the Planning and Zoning Commission. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
As council liaison, I'd also like to welcome you and tell you we appreciate you stepping forward. We're still having a hard time filling all of our commissions, and it's great to see somebody step forward. As the other commissioners know, it is a lot of time consumption going through all this, and it's great to see people step forward and not just stand on the sidelines and be critical. It's good to see people come in and participate. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I did a little over about 2 years with the Parks and Rec, and it just, I learned a lot from and working with those folks, and I enjoyed it, and I just thought next step. So, thank you for your support.
Great speech.
And in reference to tonight's, what we was on with the winery, there's a wedding and wine tasting going on right now over at the winery. I drove by on the way here, and that's what threw the flag up with parking, because it was, if I wanted to stay there, I was going to have to look for a parking place. With the wedding and the wine tasting that's going on tonight, I was going to have to look for a parking place if I wanted to stop.
Okay, any other comments? May I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
We have a motion to adjourn by Commissioner Bell, second by Commissioner Puttrick. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? We are adjourned.